Welcome back. It's episode 3 of FDT. Me and Shelly are here. I just want to say thanks to everyone that watched the first couple episodes. If you haven't, go back and check them out as soon as you're done with this one. I guarantee you're going to enjoy them. So, yeah, we're back. Shelly, what's up?
All kinds of things.
Okay.
But I'm good. How are you?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm good. It's, another day, another dollar. And I appreciate, there's always new people coming in. FDT was different than Audible Farm in the fact that this is a whole new group of people, a whole new platform, a whole new everything. This is really fun. The first 2 were amazing. So,
and I've watched them several times. Probably half the viewership is from me.
I love that after it comes out the next day, you'll send me just quotes of things that people said in the episodes. And it's yeah, that got me too when I was editing.
Well, Dan Cassidy was hilarious. And the best thing about him is that he doesn't try to be.
Dan Cassidy was low key the best part of the last episode.
I know. Well, and that, as we've talked about in the past, that was the whole kind of gist of starting this, right? Was to have these kind of casual conversations with friends and artists, supporters, and people, musicians, all the things, and our members, and highlight different organizations in the community, and just, let's meet the real people that are making this work.
Exactly. So. Let's have fun while we're doing it. So who we got sitting down with us today, Shelly?
I'm so glad you asked because I've been excited to introduce these 3. Just look at them. So I'm going to actually let you each introduce yourself, and I'm going to have you guys talk, at least the 2 of you, about your role with Fort Dodge Fine Arts, and you can share a little bit about your involvement in the arts as far as Fort Dodge right now, and then we'll go back and dig up all your history in a little bit. So this dapper man will go first.
Well, good evening. My name is Steve Kersten. I am interested in the arts kind of way back. My dad was big into photography, and we made a darkroom together, and I've been doing film photography forever. In college, I took a bunch of art courses, painting, drawing, printmaking, really enjoyed it, and so I've always wanted to keep my foot in the door for the arts. So I became a board member of the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association, 10 plus years ago. I'm also on the...
You're also the president.
I'm the president, and I don't know why that hasn't changed over the years. There's supposed to be every 3 years a change.
The bylaws have been amended.
Okay. I wrote them, so I'm not sure how that could happen. But I'm on the Public Art Commission. I've been in one play, which it was hard. It was hard work.
We're going to come back to that.
I don't know. After just listening to episode 1 made me realize, okay, this is... Yeah, it is hard work to do a musical or a play. It's to learn your spots and be there and timing, and
it's a part-time job.
Rochelle can speak to some of that too.
I'm retired. I'm totally retired from that. One thing you didn't mention though is how great of a dancer you are.
Oh,
we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. Spill the tea.
He is an amazing dancer.
When did
the
always, it's just always been there.
Dancer. When did you see me dance?
I see anytime there's a dance floor.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love to dance. Yeah.
Yes.
And he's good at it.
Cutting a rug. All right.
So what else? Let's see. Had fun with...
Use this one to gesture and that one to hold still.
Taken a photography course out at Iowa Central. Thank you for setting that up. A couple, 3 Sundays for adults or for anybody, just a volunteer thing.
We did that together.
Yeah, and that was...
We were all 3 a part of that. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is cool.
So... Anyway, it's great. And then it was part of the Silo project with Carissa Harvey, who kind of got the group together. And I think that kind of evolved into the Fort Dodge Public Art Commission.
Which we'll get into. Yep.
So anyway, I'm trying to keep my foot in the door and several doors. So having a lot of fun.
Well, and it never hurts to have an attorney on board.
Yeah.
You bring a skill set that most of us don't have.
Which has been important with this arrangement at Phillips Middle School, the auditorium. And we had to deal with the lease and to work in agreement with the owners and trying to keep it so we could have it forever. So we got creative in the lease, and it's working out.
Which is where we are right now.
Exactly. You can see it as the backdrop right now in the episode. It's awesome. I recorded a music video in here once, and it was the first time I think I'd ever been in here. Even though I believe I remember maybe coming over here for something for school when I was younger.
Did you see any ghosts?
I did not. There were no ghosts there at that time. They were all scared of me.
Okay, so then next to Steve.
Anyway,
Segue.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Niki Conrad. I have two jobs, actually. I am on the Board of Supervisors, and I also am the Director of Marketing at Friendship Haven. I was born and raised in Fort Dodge. Before my mom went to work at then Iowa, Illinois, Gas and Electric, she actually taught the art classes at my school at Corpus Christi. She came in and she taught us about stippling, painting, and Van Gogh. And so I've always been surrounded by art, but particularly music. I remember specifically that at our first home that I was in, we didn't have a dining room table, but we had a stereo. And so Mom would just put the speakers around in a circle, and she'd put on a record, and she'd say, get in the middle. And we'd get into the middle, and we'd have the lights off. She'd say, close your eyes. Doesn't it sound like you're at a concert? And so that's my beginnings of my love for music. I went to St. Ed's. I did all the drama. I did musical theater. I not really great with painting and all of that, but performance art I do a little bit of. And then here I'm on the Public Art Commission, which is really wonderful. I'm a non-voting member, so I get to just kind of listen in and go, oh, that's a good idea. And just I'm appreciative of the arts, of course, as well.
Well, yeah, you're a huge supporter of the arts. Oh, and here she is.
This is terrifying, actually.
Why is
Which part?
I don't know, just speaking in front of people in general.
There's only 4 of us here.
I know. Well, we have no idea who else is listening to this auditorium. It is huge, actually.
They're out of here. No.
And the ghosts may have been gone the first time you were here, Peter. But so my name is Rochelle Green, and I have several roles, I guess. I am a photographer, professional photographer, and the program coordinator at Iowa Central Community College for photography and digital arts. I'm also a board member of the Fort Dodge Fine Arts.
You're
and
co-secretary.
I'm a co-secretary. I'm not really sure what that entails, actually.
Well, you're doing it.
Great. I'm doing it. And I am also on the Public Art Commission. I've been on other boards, weaving in and out the last 18 years since I've moved back to Fort Dodge. I'm also born and raised here. And then the interesting part was the second I could leave, I wanted to leave. And that was really good for me because then, traveling and being not in Iowa really made me appreciate Iowa so much more, and coming back to a community that is really thriving in the arts. About the time I came back, the city was on this 2030. Do you remember this? They had all these meetings for Envision 2030. And what I thought was really exciting about that was they really wanted to speak to all of the people in the community about what do you want to see in Fort Dodge in the year 2030.
Who's they?
The city council,
Okay.
Fort Dodge.
Driven by Terry Lutz, the mayor at the time.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
I was super excited about coming back into a community where they were really listening to what the community members wanted, and art was a huge part of that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just, as you were speaking about that, it's funny because I grew up in Webster City, 20 miles, east of here, and graduated, went to college, and never in a million years would I have thought that Fort Dodge is where I would call home and where I would have everything that I could do, that I was passionate about and contribute to. And it is. I mean, it's a city that's thriving with the events every month, with the public art, with the programming. Even at Iowa Central is growing all the time. And the partnerships that are involved with that as well. It's really... We have a really cool place to live.
We do, for sure.
We need to get more press about that. So,
Yeah.
Peter, I task you with that.
Well, we're working on it. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy because when I was growing up, there was live music around the area, and that's kind of my forte. But it's when you go out and nowadays, you can stand in the middle of downtown and throw a rock, and you'll hit live music somewhere on any given night, it seems like, so it's kind of like you said, when I was growing up, I didn't think there'd be like basically everything I wanted to do right here. And now it's basically to an extent here, Envision, I don't ever remember hearing anything about that Envision 2030
Well,
thing,
you're a lot younger than me.
I don't remember anything about that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was they had tons of meetings. And I can't remember exactly what year that was. Do you remember, Steve? It was probably like 2006-ish, somewhere around there.
It was early 2000s.
But they had, I don't know, monthly, bi-monthly meetings and just roundtable sessions and there was tons of community members that would attend these meetings and just give some feedback. So that really kind of struck me in a super positive way, like, okay, I made the right decision in moving back here because there's a lot of good things that are happening. And also understanding, we're almost to 2030 now and what has changed, over the past 20 years or so. And so many things have grown. My role at Iowa Central is just, it's so cool to see how much Iowa Central has grown, not just as an institution, but just culturally, I think, when you look at all of the events that are happening there, all the students that we have, and a lot of students who decide to stay here in our community. And if not Fort Dodge in Iowa, we have students from all over the world, and when they come here, they really do enjoy their time. And I think the arts are a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And I think the focus, at least one part of the focus of 2030 was the image of Fort Dodge. And Fifth Avenue South, that was Lutz's big deal. He wanted to get rid of all the wires, get every place have a nice little fence. I mean, improve the image. And
above ground, you're talking about like electrical, telephone, all those things.
And, Fifth Avenue South has transformed a lot, and he got some resistance to it, but I think in the end, it's been very nice change.
There's always resistance to change.
I actually brought that up on a podcast I was on not terribly long ago. I remember that being a thing and being like, why bury all these cables? And then recently I saw a before and after picture, and I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, right. For sure.
Oh, and they changed the type of signs you can have. They want monument signs instead of the pre-existing signs that are tall like McDonald's can stay. But any new business has to put in a monument sign so it's not blocking and being so, Las Vegas-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then I also think the support of the city behind that is a huge component of that as well. And we can talk about the silo project. I guess let's talk about that now, because that was the catalyst to creating the Public Art Commission, which we all are currently a part of with the city. So with the whole, I don't know, how do we get into this? The silo. I mean, you've heard of the painted silo.
Yes. Oh, let's start basics for people that don't know what the Public Arts Commission is. What is it? Because I'm not from here, and I literally, by happenstance, stumbled upon it yesterday.
Well, these kind of both go hand in hand.
Okay.
So the project was a call for artists. I'm not even sure how the initial conception of the idea came to be. Do you remember, Steve?
Well, I just remember that we had these huge silos down by Amigos that, begged, I think, to be made, a form of art.
It was a canvas, a huge canvas.
And Carissa Harvey was, she's part of the city planning department. She was instrumental in organizing a group and promoting, hey, let's figure out what we can do with these silos. And so somehow I got on the committee, and lots of people were on the committee, and we tossed around different ideas. And I think she might have been the one that, found Guido Van Helten from Australia, who is this master artist on huge black and white paintings of huge silos. Anyway.
This might date me, but he's like the Michael Jordan of large-scale canvases.
Okay.
I mean, there's probably a cooler term.
The kids nowadays would say LeBron.
Okay, LeBron.
They would be wrong.
Or Steph
be Michael Jordan.
Steph Curry.
Okay.
No, they'd be saying Caitlin Clark.
There you go.
True that.
Fair point.
But he is. I mean, his large-scale mural work is all over the world and several locations in the United States, too. So, you're totally right. Carissa Harvey was definitely.
We did have a call for artists, and we had several artists who did submit work
submitted proposals and scale models of what they were talking about doing, and then we tried to kind of have the public input with it and how.
That was a component of the grant requirements, for sure. Yep.
And we kind of set up a room at City Hall and had the different scale models sitting around, and you could vote by putting a kernel of corn in a jar, and
which again was a small component of the several things.
Anyway, it was a learning experience for everybody because we'd never done anything like this before.
Yeah.
But wasn't part of it also because folks come into town via that
Bingo.
road?
That's how I always come
right?
into town.
And so, I mean, I wasn't here when it initially started, but wasn't that a component of people coming through town, and instead of seeing these silos that have been there forever, seeing some sort of public art that represents Fort Dodge?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember like them talking about that. They wanted to kind of remodel the Northwest Corridor in that area because that's, like you said, it's how people come into town, and that's how I always came into town. You know, it's basically the easiest way to get in if you're coming from the north and you want to go downtown, unless you go down and, you know, Carl King Viaduct area. But still, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because what else are you going to do? It's not like they were like an eyesore, but it's also like, what are they doing here? And what purpose are they serving? And do we knock them down? And why would we knock them down if we did? And it's going to cost money anyways. So, you know.
Yeah, it just aided to the idea of it just being a very industrial town, right? And now when you drive down to that, I mean, I'll specifically drive in that way just so I can see it. You know, it's just a beautiful monument that's celebrating the diversity of our community. And
it's changed so much.
Yes.
You know, weather, the seasons, it's always changing. And Rochelle, I think you could speak to a little bit about Guido's process. I mean, he spent a lot of time in Fort Dodge.
He did.
While he was preparing for this.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is a great
You know,
guy.
the interesting thing about Guido is he applied for this just like everybody else did. You know, it is my understanding that we didn't seek him out. He applied, and then once we saw, you know, the work that he did, we were curious. But I think a lot of us were like, we want something with color. I do remember having those conversations, like, you know, we want something that's colorful and vibrant. And the more we learned about Guido and his process, you know, the more interested I think a lot of us became in just kind of meeting him. He decided to come and visit Fort Dodge. And I think he was like, maybe there was a couple people that were still in the running, and he decided to come and meet people in the community. And when we met him, you know, we just really realized at that time that he's not in it just for the paycheck at all. I mean, I think that's secondary for sure for him, maybe even further down than secondary. He really wants to like learn about the community and learn what the community, you know, is growing and thriving for and on. And that's exactly what he did. He met as many people as he could during the time he was here. When he left, he had come up with some ideas and some concepts. And then when he came back, he again spent a couple weeks meeting people and really trying to decide. And he didn't specifically decide who was going to be photographed to be painted. He let people in the community pop out some names, but it's not about the name of the people. It's really about
the essence
and the energy of the people.
And their occupation and how they contributed to the history and the growth of Fort Dodge too.
And the artifacts are really important to this as well because
that the people are holding
because they're, you know, these are all part of our legacy in this area, but also how people are intertwined and connected.
It's incredibly thoughtful from the people to the artifacts to the you mentioned that you were looking for really bright, vibrant colors.
Well, that's what we thought.
And then he kind of spun that around to
he
be
also
something
educated
else.
us on why that's not a good idea. He's like, you know, if you could throw some color up here, the longevity of this mural is not going to be as long as if.
Yeah, it just doesn't look as vibrant as long, you know, and like you said, it kind of textures itself out over the years if there's no color in there. Otherwise, it just looks faded, and now it's
aging well.
It ages well, It almost like patinas itself, you know. And if you haven't ever seen these, the paintings that are on the silos, we're talking, 60 to 100 foot silos, something like that.
110 feet,
110 feet, yeah.
Okay, and
largest silo or largest mural in Iowa.
They look very lifelike. And I'm not just saying to be like, oh, it looks neat or whatever, but like, come down the hill and look at it. You're like, holy cow. And then you get close to it and you see how big it is. And you're like, what? It's wild, especially to be painted on a non-flat surface and still look like
See,
that.
that's the thing. He
Yes.
somehow understood how to make people on a curved surface.
He's an architect also.
And he knew the
He's
the
just
angles to
amazing,
make it
yes.
look like they're real.
And he spent a lot of the time in the middle of winter on a lift truck with like heaters drying the paint as he went. And correct me if I'm wrong. I've made up a lot of stories that in my head later I would vow to be true. But correct me if I'm wrong, that he used some of basically the earth or the elements in Fort Dodge and Webster County to mix with the paints to apply to the surface of the silo to again incorporate another aspect of the community into this.
This guy gets cooler and cooler the more we talk about him.
Well, you guys are nodding. I mean, that's
No, he
true, right?
absolutely-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he used dirt, and I think he got some gypsum. I mean, not a lot, but
Right.
he wanted the symbolism of it was part of our history of the components of his art.
Yeah, he would speak to people and he would ask to record them sometimes. And then the other amazing thing about Guido, I think he's just really thoughtful and just wants to bring people into the art platform as well. He had never photographed with studio lighting or studio strobes. And he's like, for this project, I want the images to be really super sharp and really clean lines. And he's like, do you think your students would help me with that? And I was like, absolutely.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And so that was a really cool process too, because then they could, he came and spoke with our students at Iowa Central and explained his process and why he does what he does, but then also invited them to be a part of that. And so these students, have some ownership with that as well.
That's so rad.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we
No
do
cap,
have some
Steve.
no
I was gonna say,
cap.
I'm
No
not saying
cap.
anything. I'd screw it up.
We do have some signage down there that explains a little bit about it, but the public
It's in the parking lot that's like across from Amigos, kind of, but
Yep.
right there at the entrance
right
of Loomis.
in front of the silo.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
I hear from Mark Campbell, who's at Amigos, and he owns it, and he says it's common for cars from other counties and even other states to
Put
be
that-
in that parking lot and
Keep
people
that mic.
walking around.
Keep that mic close to your mouth, please.
Yep, you bet.
Sorry, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. A couple of years ago, I was kind of just like, well, let's see what the trails are all about. Started walking trails, and I did exactly that. Where it's like, I'm going to pull up here because there's a giant, plaque basically explaining like what this is and why it's
Right.
here, and why not pull up and read it, And I like that. That's another thing about downtown in Fort Dodge. I kind of like all the signs that are starting to come up where it's like, this is here. Here's a trail here. Go this way. It's kind of
well,
neat.
and that's a great segue into the Public Art Commission, I think, in general, because that's one of the tasks that we work with alongside Park and Rec. And Lori Brandehorst and get all of that stuff lined up to be able to have matching signage on the trails and make that fit. But it was really this whole process of the silo, and I think a lot of the support that the community was giving. Yes, there was some people that were like, oh, another piece of art. But for the most part, there was a huge support for this, especially when it was like he was working on it, and then when it was done, people are like, "Oh man, what was I thinking? Like this is not what I thought when I read about it in the paper."
Exactly.
So they were really impressed, and so yes, as you mentioned earlier, Steve, Carissa Harvey was, super valuable.
Yeah, and I think she used this, because it's so important with the public art of those silos. I think it kind of then said, well, why aren't we doing more? Why don't we have so much talent in the area, and we have so many things that we can do. Let's set up a public art commission. And it's a city entity, and never had one in Fort Dodge. I think other cities do. And so she was, I think, instrumental in setting up the public art commission, and several of the members of the committee were asked to be on it. And so the Public Art Commission has been going on for 4 or 5 years now, and focus, I think, is kind of twofold, if not more. Take care of the public art that we have. Maintain it, and then plan for what future public art do we want in Fort Dodge. So
So yeah, recently they just did a restoration of the statues, sculptures that are in the square.
Okay.
Outside of the library.
Carl
Those
King,
have both been restored. And then the Floyd of Rosedale was another. That was like the big project once the commission was established. And that was a pretty amazing.
Floyd of Rosedale's the pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, out by the swimming pool.
By the water park, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, they trade that every year, who wins the game, Minnesota and Iowa. So, yeah.
And that's got a fun story too, you know, between athletics and the arts, and then some controversy behind it too. And it just really makes for an interesting story.
What I appreciate about the Public Art Commission is the thoughtfulness that goes through every decision. It's not just let's slap up a mural. It's where would it best fit, what consistency between the different art pieces that we have around town and the plaques, or what describes them, and really what makes sense for our area. Does it make sense to have sculpture here? Would it be better suited to be someplace else? There's a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into the decisions that they're making, and it's really, I appreciated that a lot.
And also, I think we need to mention the support of the city. I mean, they're funding $25,000 a year as a budget, which. And Terry Menke, I think, was, city council member, was really strong in getting that to happen, which I think is wonderful. I mean, they've got a tight budget, and $25,000 a year is nice. And I think we've got $50,000 now, and we've spent some money, but we're looking how we can best spend it in the future. I mean, public art can be real expensive, but depends on how you do it. But I think the Guido project, the silos, was $160,000, all privately funded, all privately donated, no city money at all.
You can find the sponsors on that signage right outside of it too.
Yep.
Yes, you can.
So are those are those the initiatives you guys have taken as a public arts council? Was it kind of started out of the silo being painted, and then you've restored some things around? Is there any other new things you've set up around town? Because every now and then you're like, well, how long has this been here? Like how long? The dog park has a couple sculptures. I was wondering about those. Like how long?
We were
have these
involved
been?
In that also.
I was gonna say, how long have these been here? I didn't notice these until I started working downtown again.
Maybe a year and a half.
Did we have anything to do with the mural from the Blanden that they put on their building?
Nope. That was their own separate purchased building. So. But several of the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Youth Advisory Council members were a part of the
Chronicle?
Design. Yes.
Outside City Hall?
Yep. That was one too. And I can't remember if that was happening kind of in tandem with just the inception of the. I think that was kind of just happened to be grandfathered in with that. But that's another one where if you look up on the Public Art Commission website, it talks about the thoughtfulness of each layer of that sculpture and why that he chose that for Fort Dodge.
Yep.
Well, and I think the nice thing about the Public Art Commission as well, as it, being very important to bringing in new artwork, is also having multiple people on the board who can share ideas and well, what if we put this here? Well, what part of town are we maybe neglecting that way? I mean, there's just a lot of conversation with that. So it's not just one person deciding we're going to put this here, or this money is going to be earmarked to this.
Right.
I think that's really nice that. And maybe that's what Carissa's intent was, to have a group of people who are invested in art to give feedback.
But in different ways,
in different ways,
avenues.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to spill the beans on things that we've talked about in our meetings right now. But one day this will be old news and everyone will know. But there are conversations about ways that we can expand outside of downtown and touch other neighborhoods and other parts of the community with the Fort Dodge Public Art Commission too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because I was just thinking, again, I just started, working in Fort Dodge again, and I spend a lot of time kind of just tootling around, little different pockets and neighborhoods. And it's like, oh, I didn't know there was a little park here. And then you go, 6-7 blocks another way and 2 blocks up. It's like, there's another little park over here. I didn't know there was this little park here, So there are a lot of areas, it would almost be selfish to just leave all the art downtown or something like that, instead of, pack it somewhere else. You never know. But you also got to be able to get the mileage out of it. It's not like you're going to put it down, a one-way street dead end that nobody ever goes down either.
Unless it's the perfect location.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I'm not going to say never to anything.
All right.
One thing the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Youth Advisory Council is working on right now with Main Street Fort Dodge is painting some murals on some of the electrical boxes downtown, which I think is fun. It makes me think of like Ann Arbor, for any of you that have ever seen, like all of their electrical boxes are, some of them are rip-offs of like Van Goghs and things like that, but some of them are really fun and unique designs. They also do that with fire hydrants, which would be fun, like a gumball fire hydrant and a R2D2.
I love going to like bigger cities. I remember seeing a lot of that in like, Colorado, Fort Collins and Denver and things like that. But it's like, why can't this be here too? Might as well be here. It's we did the piano project here in town. You guys did the piano project here in town. I didn't do it.
But the piano project is very, like, it's a lot like Bulls on Parade or Cows on Parade in Chicago, where they would have all these, I don't know if they're bulls or cows, whatever.
Or the Herkies in Iowa City.
Yeah. That are just the same concept, but decorated or
tailored
differently
to different areas.
Yeah, exactly.
How many pianos do we have out there?
23. Thanks for asking.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yes, I saw one out.
I was part of painting the first one.
I know you were.
Yeah, with
Hope.
Hope, yeah. That was a fun deal.
You were really proud of that, Steve.
Well,
You should be.
And we're proud of you.
Yeah. It was an OG.
I did see one of those pianos out in the hallway.
rad.
Yeah, there's one here
No
at
caps,
Phillips,
Steve.
for sure.
What do you guys
We're trying to get in as much awkward youth lingo as we can.
Oh, I love it.
They are. I don't know it.
Steve, it was actually Steve's idea.
Steve's big moment is coming.
He said, it'd be bussin'.
So bussin'.
Yeah. Steve, you're adorable. Okay, so here's a random question for each of you. What do you say to someone when they ask about, why would we spend money on this? Why should we support this? Public art specifically is where I'm focusing this. But why in the hell do we need another piece of public art?
And that would be public art that's either privately or publicly funded.
Any of it.
Could be...
Anything that's in the paper, people don't care.
Okay.
Whether it's public or private. Yeah. I mean, everyone will have an opinion, which is fine.
Yeah.
We want that. But, just for you personally, what is it that drives you to support public art in our community?
Well, I think music, public art, plays, theater, all of that makes standard of living in Fort Dodge much, much better. I mean, it makes life more enjoyable. And I mean, it's proven with the silo. People drive down from out of town, the bridge from the country club or the bridge that you come down, you see it and it makes people smile. I guarantee it. Yeah. I mean, they go, wow. And little things, just make life more fun and enjoyable. And I just think it's an important part of everybody's life to have art in the community.
I have a couple of answers to this. So for me personally, as Niki Conrad, the human being, I just like living in a place that looks pretty, that has cool things, that has something that you can be proud of. That look at this amazing piece of art that we have here.
Talking points, like brag rights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I can put on my government hat here for a second, the silos. I mean, just that alone brings in tourists. And I'm also a board member of Visit Fort Dodge, which is our convention and visitors bureau. It brings in people from other areas. We were talking about it earlier, from seeing different license plates of different counties and different states and whatnot. So you're bringing in people from all these other places who are then going to spend money, who are then going to hang out, who are then going to tell their friends, like, oh my gosh, you have to go see this amazing piece of art here.
It's an economic boost.
Yes, exactly. The other thing is, and I think people may not understand this when it's like grant funded, specifically, is that there are grants out there that have very specific parameters. I mean, grants inherently have specific parameters, but so when I hear things like, why did we spend money on this when we could have been, doing the streets or whatnot, right? You hear it every time. Why did we have this piece of art when I can't, ride on my road? It's because the specific money that was received is for that specific purpose. So you cannot legally use grant money to fix a road.
Separate funding.
Yeah,
absolutely. So like those grants, you have to write them up and apply for the money, basically.
It's a whole process.
And you have to do it specifically the exact correct way, or they basically send it back to you and say sorry. And
with no feedback.
Yeah,
Nope.
there's a lot of work that goes into actually just applying for grants, and then on top of that, the money has to be available from wherever you're applying for it from, whether it be like a state or city or whatever it happens to be. Federal grants even for that kind of stuff. So I think that, like you said, I took a federal taxation course and a governmental taxation course where they were talking about how to do bookkeeping and things like that, and where the money goes and why it goes there. And that was really eye-opening for me to be like, oh, they have these little buckets and it's all specifically supposed to go to this stuff. And it makes sense that that's the way it's supposed to be if you want to look at it from a logistic sense, from the accounting brain. So, but I think that's another thing, maybe if somebody didn't take this course or has never been involved in any sort of civic duty, they might not know that kind of stuff. And hopefully this little tidbit will educate some people.
And it's ongoing. It's ongoing education for that.
And just to have something that you could be proud of. I know we talk a little bit about image of our area in Fort Dodge and Webster County and whatnot, and to have these pieces of culture really is a way to show not only people from out of town, but our own citizens here too, that we're investing in quality of life. We're investing in arts and culture. And that, to me personally, is a very great sign of strength of the community and pride in the community when you have a piece of art versus a community that doesn't. I wouldn't want to move someplace that didn't have some sort of art, or
I
culture.
can imagine what that would look like.
Yeah, exactly.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Definitely, I'm weaving into both of your answers, actually. I think a little bit. I'm going to destroy this quote, but I've just recently read a quote that says, "We do not view the world as it is, we view the world as we are." So it's all based off of our life experiences, all the ingredients of, who you are, right? So I think about that with the public art, with any art in general. How we view it and how we interpret it are based off of our life experiences, are based off of the stories that we have heard that are being told over generations. I'm not going to lie, I don't like every piece of art that I see. I just enjoy the fact that somebody created that.
And somebody likes it.
And somebody likes it. And somebody felt that it was important enough for them to express those feelings and thoughts, music, same way, and wanted to document that. And I think that's really, leaving a legacy for future generations as well. I think that's really important.
And I think this is one of those areas, again, Peter, we've discussed this in other podcasts before. This is one of those ongoing challenges where I've spoken about how, my life and childhood and growing up, I never had to wonder, why is this production or this piece of art to be appreciated? Why is this important? I just know it is ingrained in me that it is, and it's not ever a question. And that's not the case for everybody. So same thing with the Fort Dodge Fine Arts.
Exactly like you said.
Same thing with the Fort Dodge Public Art Commission, is that continuing education about that. And then another side of that, and I've started to share this, and you guys can add to this as well, but with the Growth Alliance leadership and junior leadership, oftentimes I will ask them, are you an artist? Okay, I might get a few hands. Do you like art? I don't know. And I ask all these questions, and then eventually I'm like, well, let's talk about how much thought was put into your favorite football team's colors, their logo, the music that the players are listening to, when they're practicing, when they're warming up. Oftentimes, even at wrestling meets, you see people with their, not headphones, Give me a cool term.
AirPods.
AirPods.
Give me a cool term.
I mean, I could have said AirPods. I thought it'd be something really Raz, is that a thing? I don't know. I'm making shit up. But anyway, but there are these pockets of the world that without the concept of art would be completely bland. Commercials. TV.
You bring up such a good point. I recently started getting like really into marketing and things like that. And the thing about that is like, you realize everything is art. Like if you went to a restaurant and the menu was white paper with black printing and it was all Times New Roman and there was nothing else on it, I'd be like, what is this place? And,
Comic Sans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chalk dust. I'm a chalk duster man myself, but I mean, like, unless it's like a really high level place, you know, like that might be a thing where it's bougie or something. You know, that's why they're doing it this way.
It's intentionally minimalistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounded bougie, that answer. That was really cool.
But, you know, I mean, like, that's one of those things where you think, like, everything has art put into it. Everyone has a thought process. All the colors were chosen for something for a reason, you know? There's reasons why everything is designed. Like, all clothes, all shoes. Like, to say somebody doesn't like art, it's like, oh, you never went to a car dealership and said that's the one I like. You never turned on the radio and said this song's cool. You've never went out and eaten food and said I've never had food like this. This is good. Like all of that is art. Every drop of it is.
Well, that's historically how we communicate, right? So we're communicating through music. We're communicating through, speech and plays and musicals and all of those things. And that's also how we can connect with people. And so if we're missing those components within a community, then, I mean, who knows what could potentially happen. It's quality of life, like you both mentioned.
Going back to sports, because I am not a sports person at all. But even if you think about baseball, right? Think about going to a Major League Baseball game, the Cubs, for example.
I mean, you are kind of a closeted Cubs fan.
For example.
Just throwing that out there to the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field, at Addison and Clark. Just throwing that out there.
At Addison.
Yeah. Go Cubs. For example, I mean, you have walkout songs, right? Each player walks out to go to bat to a song, and you can tell immediately what that player is like by the one song that they choose to walk out to, right? Yep. And then you have like little kids in Little League who are like, my mom's gonna put on a walkout song for me. Or like they want their own walkout songs and they want to choose the songs that they walk out to. And you're communicating who you are in that moment via song while you're walking out to play a sport. And I just think that's so indicative of the ties that art has to daily life.
You're into baseball. You know about a walkout song. That not many people know that.
Show them your Cubs tattoo.
I do not have a Cubs tattoo.
Yeah.
I should have a Cubs tattoo.
All right.
No, I do not have.
Okay, you're reeling us in.
I was going to say, like, are we going to have to edit this?
Speaking of art, tattoos.
Are we going to have to edit this?
That's a whole. Yes. I mean, people sometimes don't think about how artistic the art of tattooing is also.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about expression and not being able to express yourself. It might as well be like, the book Brave New World or something, where it's like nobody's allowed to. Everyone has to wear drab clothing everywhere. A uniform. I mean, nobody wants any of that. Nobody wants to live in a place like that, or to. If you're around things like that, you find yourself on a day-to-day basis, you're eventually just getting more and more worn out because there's nothing to do. There's no one to express yourself to, and there's no, it's like you guys had all, I think each one of you had mentioned, like, even if this art isn't for me, I'm happy that somebody did it. I play live music. It's not like I like every single song I've ever played, but, it's nice to be able to play it and see that somebody else enjoys it, and that's what makes me enjoy playing it. Not the song itself, but that's, again, being able to express yourself and somebody else getting some enjoyment out of it,
Yeah. So I'm gonna. I didn't mean to cut you off. Did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. Did I?
No.
Okay.
No. Great transition.
Okay. Until I said that. But this kind of makes me think about, Rochelle, since you're here specifically, with Iowa Central and your programs, and I think you do a really amazing job of integrating that into your coursework and with your students about, whether or not they actually have a heartfelt care about the community while they're here for their 2 or 3 5
Yeah.
years, 5 years. But just learning about ways to give back, ways to be involved, ways to appreciate, ways to gain experience, ways to build their resume, things like that. And I guess I'd like, each of us have experience with your students in that, but I'd like you to speak to that a little bit about why do you do that with your kids other than, yes, we're a community college? But
well, for me, I think wherever they end up living, if it's here or going back to their hometown or, across, the ocean, I think for me, I just want to establish in them a care for their community and others, and know that they have a voice and they are important. And so it's really important for me to have like a learning community where we are all giving feedback on each other's work, really kind of encouraging each other to create work, and then taking that concept out into our local community as well, into places like Friendship Haven, and meeting small business owners, and our students can help them, create content, or just, help them like learn a new skill. I think all of those things, if you know something really well, or if you think you know it really well, you will know for sure that you know it well when you can teach it. Mm-hmm. And so having the opportunity to be able to bring my students out into our community and allowing them, the freedom with support to meet new people. I mean, a lot of our students are terrified to speak with other people, especially people that they have no background of,
you said at the beginning of this podcast.
Exactly. I'm the perfect person to speak to this. I think for me, if I would have had a little bit more of those opportunities growing up too, I had great teachers, don't get me wrong, but we just didn't go out and interject in with the community that much. I knew very little about Iowa Central. I knew it was here, but for some reason in the back of my mind, I didn't think it was for me. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know that I would go to college. I didn't know that place was for me. And then once I moved back here and I realized how amazing these opportunities are for our local students in our community and, the counties surrounding us. And then just being able to be a part of that, bridging a gap between students who may not know their importance in the world, and giving them opportunities, and then hopefully providing them, the confidence to be able to continue that. It's just showing them a little path of where they could potentially go.
Yeah, I think that's great. It gives a ability to build your portfolio too at the same time, but it instills confidence in them. It's like you said, sometimes they, I guess anyone, like even when I went back to school, one of my favorite things to do, which is what I'm probably the worst at, is networking. I loved going out and meeting people and talking to them, and I'm always nervous and I don't know what to say at first. And then after a while, you're like, this is actually really fun and I enjoy this, getting to know new people and stuff, and you're providing these people with a lot of different opportunities. And not only that, but like the community gets to benefit from this too. If let's say you take them on a field trip to somewhere and they take photos, or take them somewhere and they do some art for somebody or something like that. Those are really honestly some of the best things.
Well, we've been really fortunate because with Shelly being she's also a member of our Iowa Central team, and being with the Fort Dodge Fine Arts and Iowa Central's really connection and relationship, she bridges every gap for us too. If a student mentions that they have an idea of a photo session in a greenhouse, I just call Shelly and I'm like, hey, you have some ties in a greenhouse.
I need a greenhouse.
I need a greenhouse. But the great thing about that is too, she educates the business owners. Like, these are students, these are some of the things that, they would like to do. And are you okay with providing them this opportunity? It's not like, oh yeah, free labor kind of thing. It's really about fostering these young people to, again, have the confidence to be able to do whatever it is that they end up doing. Soft skills are a huge thing right now,
especially since these are COVID kids.
They are, yeah. I mean these kids were in high school during COVID, and so some of those social gaps that we have, those are the types of opportunities that I want to provide for them as well. And then through that, their confidence and building a culture that is based off of just care and concern for them in their future allows them to be more open to express themselves in an art platform. So it kind of all just goes full circle.
And I've got to bring up, personally, I reached out to Rochelle's department for assistance selfishly. My dad was an attorney in Fort Dodge, and I'm an attorney. And we have a tradition that when you die, your picture's put up on the wall.
The dead wall.
The dead wall in the third floor of the courtroom, or courthouse where the courtrooms are. And my dad's photograph was taken in 1984 by Yusuf Karsh, who's probably one of the best black and white film photographers, and he's taken everybody famous.
Yeah.
From Fort Dodge?
No,
he's not from here.
I was like...
No, he's from
Yeah.
Canada.
Okay.
So my dad went there, and anyway, long story. So I said, well, I'd like to have the same format for mine. I mean, and so I had my dad's picture, and I called up Rochelle and said, hey, what do you think about this project? And she said it would be great. So, brought all the students out to the courthouse and the third floor, and I'm showing them all these pictures and portraits of all the, there must be, 100 of them there, because 1860s we were having attorneys here. And so they took the challenge, and I went out to Iowa Central, and I think I sat for 6 or so different photographers, and they had it all set up, and they had to do it. But it was fun talking to them about the tradition and about.
Well, I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the really important elements of that is you're sharing the importance of how this photographer and this piece of art has really impacted your life.
Yeah.
And you want to continue that legacy. And, the more we can tell these stories and share why art is important, to younger generations, the more they're going to appreciate creating that work and then, sharing that with others as well.
So they did a great job.
Whenever Rochelle has a model call, I know she's not looking for me.
I'm never looking for you for that. Nope. I have photographed thousands and thousands of people in my life, especially when I had Green Door Photography, I had, several sessions a day. You are the most challenging human being I've ever.
Why?
Why?
And
Not
you're
that she
welcome.
takes, she just likes to have the control.
I know, it's hard.
It's so hard to believe.
Is it?
You ought to have your students try it out.
No way. I did a couple times, actually, and I won't do that. I won't do that again.
I did have one successful shoot, and it was when I had a puppy, and it was only of my feet, and then the dog running around my feet.
We
that
have
was my
some
best
great
session.
headshots of Shelly, and we just continue to use those over and over again.
From 12 years ago. But one thing you mentioned was, and this was prior to you being at Friendship Haven, Niki, and you might have some things since then, but one of the projects that Evan did at Friendship Haven has really stuck with me, and I would love for you to share a little bit about that.
Well, so it was probably about this is my 9th year teaching. And so after that first year, I really wanted to have a project with our neighbors, Friendship Haven. Our campuses are connected. And my very first job was at Friendship Haven. And so I felt a really strong connection with Friendship Haven. And so that time I reached out to Denise Halverson, and we chatted about what this project could be. And so I had some really super thoughtful students at that time who just had, they just had really great ideas on lots of things. And I mentioned to her, well, what if we paired up these students with residents and just have them speak with them and do a photo series of them based off of these conversations that they have. And she's like, okay, yeah, let's try it. And so we didn't know how many residents would, take the bait on that. And my students were, super excited to do it. And so somehow miraculously paired up one of my students, Evan, with one of the residents there, Dick Whitcomb, and the two of them ended up becoming best friends. Now, Evan, his name's Evan Price. He's amazing. You should look him up. He's created videos. He is a photographer. He does everything. He's a videographer. But he did have a history where he came from Rockford, Illinois. He's African American. He had tattoos on his face and everywhere. And and he was very excited about the project, but kind of nervous, walking into a situation like that. And Dick only saw him as his friend. The two of them text. They would go on photo safaris together. They'd eat lunch.
And how old was Dick at this time?
Oh my gosh.
Ish.
Late 80s.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
his portrait is on the silo.
It is, and
Dick
so
Whitcomb.
and Evan helped Guido with that process with them too. So they developed this really amazing friendship, and through that, Evan had created beautiful portraits, but also this really beautiful documentary of Dick talking about his time in Fort Dodge and then also in the war and his photography background. And so through that project, then we've done multiple other projects. One of my other favorite ones was last year with Niki, and we did Earth Day sessions with the residents and had flower crowns. And I mean, it's just really sweet because the stories that you hear the residents, or not even just the stories, just the conversations between the residents and our students, you know, you've got multi-generations of age gap there. But during this time, there's just a connection with them, and you know that time has kind of disappeared a little bit.
What was the feedback like?
Oh my
Families
gosh.
and
It was incredible. So a little backstory before that, you and I, Rochelle and I, had decided we were going to do this, and we were really excited, and we're like, we're going to bus, we'll take folks over. Some of the residents who went were very apprehensive. They were like, I don't know if this is for me, and I accompanied them, and we walked in, and even walking into the building, they were like, I don't know, I'm not gonna use any of the props because they had props set out, they had crowns of flowers and whatnot, and they're like, well, I'm not gonna use any of those, and I'm like, oh, what if you just put a little crown on? Because you look so cute. Look at how cute you are. And then they were like, oh, okay. But the second all of those students, it was like paparazzi. And these women, I was with a group of women in particular, went from, I'm not going to use a crown, to posing and being like, oh, okay,
I'll take 2 crowns.
I know, right? And it was the sweetest thing. And then there was a gentleman who really got into it, and the feedback from not only the residents who were reluctant to start, and I think I kind of cajoled them into getting into the bus and going, because I'm like, this is gonna be great. But the families could not say enough nice things about it. I have, a son and a daughter who were like, I don't know what happened, but these are fantastic. We use them in social media, and both of us, Iowa Central and Friendship Haven, both published those photos on our social media, and the response has just been overwhelming. Intergenerational bonds are hugely important in our society, just in general, but particularly in Friendship Haven. And so having them around all of these young adults and being treated as this special model was so wonderful to witness. And I'm so glad I was able to be there for that moment, because it was a memory that I won't soon forget.
What a great experience for the students too.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
I mean,
for sure.
they're interacting and learning.
Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite projects, always, every single year.
That makes me think about when I worked retail, every now and then you'd see the same customers come in, and you'd see an older lady and she'd get her hair cut. If you mentioned it, their eyes would light up always.
Yes.
And it's just it's that fun. It's just something fun I always enjoyed, so it makes sense that they would just ham it up if you put a camera in front of them too,
Incredible.
They just had to get warmed up.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, there's a lot of similarities between college students and students who are residents at Friendship Haven. Sometimes they just feel like they're not really being looked at, and with my college students, they're like, does anyone really see me? And then I know from speaking with some of the residents too, they're like, oh, nobody cares about that. Nobody really wants a photo of me anymore, but we do, and providing those opportunities for them, I think is pretty great. So I'm super thankful for Iowa Central and Friendship Haven both allowing us to do that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we could spend a whole podcast on just Rochelle and her students' projects, for sure, because the list goes on and on and on. But before we run out of time, I always like to know.
Uh-oh.
Drum roll, please.
Oh, no.
And this is artistically, if you can find an artistic connection, this might be easier for you just with your profession. But I want to know about a time, a project, an assignment for you, a photo shoot or a project or something that you were involved. Even for you, it can be a gig or a singing, something from your experience that just went horribly wrong and was a huge embarrassment. Last podcast we heard about Dan Cassidy throwing up and losing his pants.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Can't beat that.
You're gonna have to go back and listen.
Yeah, you gotta listen to that one.
Everybody lost it, and then he said one other thing, and it was like twice the laugh.
It was. I was. So that's all I'll share about that. You're gonna have to look at episode 2. But yeah, I want to end this discussion with just, you know what, Steve? It can be a courtroom experience. I mean, I think we all would love to hear an embarrassing courtroom experience from you. Names left out, but whoever. We don't have to go in order. Whoever.
Oh, geez. That's super hard because I'm on stage every single day for like 6 hours a day with my students. I bet they have tons of stories where they're like, oh my gosh, Rochelle said this, you know? Yeah. But again, I think for me, I don't really dwell on it because I don't take myself too seriously. It's just, it is what it is, and everyone makes mistakes or goofs up on things. But what, do you know one?
No, but
okay.
I mean, maybe this is about
this one?
Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know.
Well, I will tell you that. Actually, this is part of the reason why I'm retired from the stage. Music has always been very important to me, and in high school and Iowa Central, I was in choir and musicals and all of those, opportunities. And I actually thought I was going to be a music major for a short period of time until I had to learn how to play piano. And then I was like, nope, after a semester, this is not working with my 18-year-old fingers. And so Shelly had convinced me to audition for Little Shop of Horrors, and I was cast with her and Susie, her sister. So the 3 of us were cast in this musical.
We were like the background girls.
I was
going to
say,
Yes.
I was Ronette.
That was not even 10 years ago, was it?
Probably 12-ish.
Yeah.
Was it?
10 to
Oh.
12. Yeah, I don't know.
And I was super excited because I love that musical. It was, I was a huge fan. And we practiced, but we didn't practice enough because Shelly was also playing piano and there was lots of ins and outs. And right before the opening number, and we have these beautiful costumes that Shelly's mom's friend made for us, and they're just amazing. My hair's all up in beehive, and I'm standing there.
Your
and
spray tan on.
Oh yeah, and I'm getting ready to turn around, and I look at Shelly, and I froze, and I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't physically turn, and she's like, "Turn around." She just grabbed my hand, and I was like. And I'm moving my mouth and I'm just like staring and I see nothing other than I hear the 2 of them singing and I feel like it's in a tunnel and I'm like, am I coming back? Am I coming back? And I finally came back and I started singing at the wrong spot and Shelly's like, stop it, kind of thing.
So we did a lot of hand holding.
Oh yes. And anyway, she snapped me out of it, but it was terrifying. Again, part of the reason why I don't like to speak in front of people, I think. Yeah, I forgot about that. I did block that out.
Oh, that was a fun moment.
Thank you for that reminder.
And now it's archived.
Yeah.
I have a ton.
No one said that. No one said that. I love that.
I feel like at every stage of my life has at least one of them. Like when I was in high school and, oh God. I was in high school and I was the lead in My Fair Lady. I was Eliza Doolittle. And for our dress rehearsals, the sisters, the nuns, would come and they would sit front row and they would watch us dress rehearsal, and it would be great because we would have a live audience and they would be laughing at, the appropriate spots. Well, I got super flustered during one song, totally forgot my lyrics, and then started cussing. Loudly.
Like what?
Words that I don't care to say.
You are being recorded.
Now that there's no nuns.
That start with the letter F.
Oh,
just say that.
You went for it.
Okay.
Well, yes, and I was a very good Catholic girl at the time, and was just like, and we had to stop, and then we broke. Because at that point, we were not going to salvage the dress rehearsal at the moment. And my choir teacher came up to me and just chewed me out. She's like, there are nuns out there. And I'm like, all right, good. So that was in high school. And then the next thing I did was nonsense. Why is this all revolving around
nonsense.
Nonsense. And I played the part, and I had said one of the things was you had to know how to dance. And I was like, I know how to dance. I'm in show choir. Like, I've done musicals. I know how to dance. What I didn't realize is it was ballet.
Oh.
And so I had said, oh yeah, I know how to dance. And so I got cast as this ballerina nun. And then it was just like,
There's your toe shoes.
Can you do point? And I'm like, what's point? And so the guy was like, oh God, this is ridiculous. And then, oh gosh, I would sing in rock cover bands after Cubs game. It all comes back to the Cubs and Nuns is my theme tonight. And I would sing after Cubs games, and I would have had a few alcoholic beverages and forget lyrics and maybe fall off of tables, and I don't know. So there's that, and I feel like there's always an aspect of that is just being
Human.
Me and being human and being like, well, I'm going to screw this up today, I guess. All right. And then you just kind of have to laugh at yourself about it, because what are you going to do? It's done.
Right.
Yeah, what's the other option? Not doing anything and not having any fun?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, what are we talking here? I mean,
Yeah.
well,
I forget lyrics all the time.
Oh, I've made up random lyrics.
I sing with Jesse Wilson in town and realized I've been singing a lyric to one of his songs wrong in the backup vocals for 6 months at least. So, and he wrote it.
How'd you find that out? Was he finally like, okay,
one
we gotta
day,
talk
one day
about
at break,
this?
he's like, I think you're saying this, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, that's not the words, and I was like, oh, well, how about them apples, you know? And then I sat and thought about it. I put all the lyrics down on a sheet and was just like, yeah, if I sang those words, it means pretty much the opposite of what he just said, and it's like a love song. So it's just it's like that's not the words. So figured that one out recently. Maybe that's my embarrassing. It's not really that embarrassing, but I just told it. But, nobody knew.
It's honest.
But now everybody knows.
Yeah.
Oh, we've all had those moments for sure.
Steve.
Well, you remind me of a thing that happened to me. In fact, well, in the courtroom, I call people's names that come up, and oftentimes I'll say, it happened a week ago. That name, I called the name, and this person had a hat on, a stocking hat. And we kind of have a rule, you're not supposed to wear a stocking. Sir, would you please take your hat off?
Oh. Not a sir.
Not a sir.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
happened, I bet you a dozen times where I'll misdiagnose their gender.
Yeah.
And, but freezing at St. Edmunds, I used to give the American Citizenship Award. And you might have even been in the graduating class. This was like, how long ago did you graduate?
We don't have to mention that.
1993.
Well, this might have been about, I did
right.
it in 1993. And so it's just a little award the Bar Association gives out. And I stood up at the podium, and I don't know why, but I just froze. And a word didn't come out of my head. And the principal came over and said, are you all right? And that got me going, but I'll never forget it. I mean, an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has it once in a while, and that's normal. But are you okay?
And something you've done a million times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's happened to me playing the piano. Like, I'm in the middle of a song, playing for a concert.
Yeah.
Will Lopes is directing, and I'm like, what if I forget how to read music? What if I forget how to play the piano?
Shelly,
I snowballs.
When I sang because I sang in a bunch of bands out after college, and I sang in like rock cover bands, and they would start the song, and it would be like, okay, Niki's on stage, and I would be like, is she? What's the first word?
Yeah, just give me the first word. I can figure out the rest.
I'd look at the drummer, and he'd be like, Josie's, and I'm like, Josie's on a vacation, you know, like I'm like, what? And I've sang that song specifically. I would be rich if I had $1 for every time.
Right.
Matter of fact, if you will indulge me for a moment.
Okay.
Are you going to sing?
No, I would sing that song, and you know, you'd open it up to the crowd to, you know, and there are usually several vodka tonics in to it, and they would come up and they would ask you for a specific song. Now that song's name is Your Love by The Outfield.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody would come up and be like, hey, play Josie's. Play Josie's. And we had just played it like 5 songs ago.
Of course.
And we'd be
Yes.
like, honey, sweetie, no. And, then they'd want to play the tambourine, and you're like, no, we're not letting you do that. But I got to the point where I got so sick of it that I'd be like, all right, $20 if you want me to play Josie's. And they would hand me $20. And then in the middle of singing the song, I'd say $50 and I stopped singing. And then people would give me $50. And I'd be like, yes.
100 if you want me to finish.
Exactly.
I mean, we've all had those singers, performers have all had those brain fart moments. For
Absolutely.
Sure. They're epic.
I'm just thinking there's some cover bands that around in town that might need to take note of that.
Yeah.
That's actually a really fun story. Just pit the people that want to hear it against the people that don't want to hear it.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's a really great way to, get some more revenue. Revenue streams.
Yes, exactly.
And this is why we're so
Tips.
lucky to have you, as a county supervisor.
Could you imagine if I'm like, okay, $20 if you want me to fix your roads.
Yeah.
$50 if you're cool the way they are.
I was just thinking you were out there singing, trying to raise money. And,
Yeah.
Oh, there's
Or
that
the city of
too.
Fort
Okay.
Dodge, yeah.
Oh, yeah. there you go.
Karaoke track
Yeah.
behind there on the corners. Outside of the public art, sculptures. Yeah, I like that.
yeah, a little
So I'm
public.
going to remember Josie next time I go to a board meeting.
Josie.
Yeah.
Yes, oh my Lord.
Sing Josie.
Sing Josie! Oh, gosh.
Well, here we are worried we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah, we got over an hour in. Last time I looked, we were under an hour. We're well over now. So
Yeah.
This is a really good episode. It's always really fun. We get down to the end of the episode, and everyone starts cutting loose. You can see the levels over here just starting to peak a lot because everyone's
That's Shelly.
We're all laughing so hard at all these fun stories, and everyone's got these fun stories, and that's kind of what this is all about, to bring people on here and talk about some what they've done, how they do it, why they did it, etc. But also to tell fun stories because that's kind of what spurred this podcast in the first place for you. So
Yeah, just casual conversations about things that wouldn't have otherwise been brought to light.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain to Steve in particular why it's called FDT?
Well, I listened to
know?
one of the podcasts, and
Which one?
Calling Steve out every
Oh,
two
maybe
yes.
the first one.
About
And
the theaters with Buzz Powers?
Yep.
Okay.
FD.
I love it.
Na, na, na.
You're on the board when we approve this, so you'll remember.
Just remind me.
So Fort Dodge,
Dodge.
and then it's
T.
TEA. Thoughtful exchange
Exchange.
about the arts.
about
Oh, see, now I just got educated because I thought it was like, we're going to spill the tea.
Well, we
It
are.
is.
Oh,
It's also
so I was
that.
like,
So
what
it's
is that
the
word
dual
where they
meaning.
have-
It's,
yeah.
Yep.
Thoughtful exchange about the arts.
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
So thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for coming, sitting down, talking with us. I know, they're probably like, I don't know, I've never done a podcast. I don't know if I want to do a podcast, but now we did a podcast and it was great and everyone's going to enjoy it. So I want to say thank you guys for taking time out of your day to sit down with us.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Yes. Yeah, this was fun. Now on to episode 4.
All right. We'll see you guys there.
Clink.
Josie's on a vacation.